So it's day 229 since the Russians invaded Ukraine. 229 days of this, and to date, the Russians have been particularly vicious, unnecessarily so, calling the Ukrainians terrorists while they are committing war crimes. All right, so I said it's day 229. I've been tracking this on video since day 85. So if you want to find more of these, Professor Gertis Ukraine, you can find that. I've been at this again for some time. I've been tracking since the early days, but only doing videos since day 85. Here's where we want to start. This is Radio Free Europe, and you're just getting kind of a sense of what's actually going on the ground. They're targeting places that are residential and energy. So they're not actually shooting missiles at other military, they're shooting missiles at civilians, and Zelensky says so much, and it's war crimes. That's what it is. 5 people killed in Kyiv this morning. 51 were wounded. 42 hospitalized. That's just in Kyiv, and it's across about 10 different cities that missiles were just lobbed in for retaliation for the Kerch Bridge. Today, rocket attacks that hit the thermal generation and electrical substations are forcing Ukraine to stop exporting electricity. So more in Interfax Ukraine. All 3 of these articles were Interfax Ukraine. So this is a little bit fuller of an account. On the morning of Monday, October 10th, starting at 6 o'clock, the Russian invaders attacked peaceful cities of Ukraine from all directions with missiles of various types. And I'll show you a map of all directions in just a little bit. As of 11:40, Russian occupiers fired more than 80 missiles on the country, and air defense units of the ground forces shot down about 45. 9 out of 12 kamikaze drones, Shahid, these are the Iranian drones, were also destroyed by air defense. That's good, but it's not good enough. I mean, it's still terrible. Again, this is what the rubble looks like. It's tragic. This was a really interesting thing in The Guardian. I'm only going to play the first few seconds of it. Kyiv hit by Russian missiles for the first time. While this reporter was talking, you hear a strike in the background, and he ignores it at first. So I'm not showing anything bloody, but you're seeing like really what's going on. And he hears something, and he ignores it thinking it's a plane. But once it explodes, he thinks better of it. Here's a bridge in the middle of Kyiv. And this is what the rubble looks like. Really? I mean, what are you attacking, Russia? Okay, so that's what it has looked like. Here's some more. This is Radio Free Europe, Radio Free Liberty. The United Nations General Assembly is expected to hold an emergency session as Russia comes under harsh criticism for a deadly barrage of missile strikes. Now, the UN called a October 10th meeting. What's today? October 10th. And so Russia has this weird pattern of whenever there's a big like UN or NATO or EU meeting to do stupid stuff like this. But it's also extra motivated with the Kerch Bridge. The UN called the October 10th meeting to discuss Russia's annexation of the Ukrainian territories, which violates international law, but the session is expected to be dominated by news of today's strikes. So I don't know what it is. If any of you understand this from like the Russian mindset, what it is that makes them think like if I just, pound them during this meeting, they're going to knuckle under or whatever. I don't think he understands the Ukrainian psyche. I sure don't understand the Russian psyche. Not enough to understand why they're doing that. Ukraine was left reeling by the deadly early morning attacks, which were the most punishing launched by Russian forces in months. This is the Defense Ministry of Ukraine, and here's what they are showing. What's your definition of terrorism? Looks to me that when you're attacking innocent civilians, that's terrorism. Good job blowing up that park. A playground? Really? Or how about attacking a street? Okay, so you've seen enough there to get a sense of what you need to see. A Dashcam shows the moment that a missile strikes into Dnipro. So this was really interesting. Just imagine that you're in this car. Look at that. Uh-oh. Whoa, what just happened over here? And so he's in the car and going, I don't know if I want to keep going forward. Yeah, I certainly don't want to go forward when that hit. All right, so he's about to turn. Yeah, better part of wisdom is getting out of there. Here's Al Jazeera did a good job showing on the map where they were hit. So the Kurds was hit on one day. The next day they hit Zaporizhia, the city of Zaporizhia, which is in the oblast that the Russians had taken. So they're targeting their own citizens. But here they're at least, on paper targeting people that are not their citizens. So Sumy and Kyiv and Vinnytsia, Lviv. So they're hitting in other places across the country. That's what's going on. Now, let's have some fun with Russian state media. Here's what the Russians are saying about that. Well, the goal of future actions of the Russian special military occupation in Ukraine should be the complete dismantling of the Kyiv regime. So if you thought that, if they just get these 4 oblasts, they'll be happy and they'll be done, I've been telling you, no, they're not going to be. They want to keep going. They're going to take as much as they think that they can. And so who said this? Deputy Chairman of the Security Council, former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev. Now, if you think that I'm making this up, let's go to his Telegram channel and see it there. This is him, October 10th. The first episode has been played. There will be others. And further, I will express my personal position. I can't help but mention it now. The Ukrainian state in its current configuration with the Nazi political regime will pose a constant, direct, and clear threat to Russia. Therefore, in addition to protecting our people and protecting the borders of the country, the goal of future actions, in my opinion, should be the complete dismantling of the political regime of Ukraine. Okay, you heard it from the horse's mouth. So Russian missiles struck multiple targets in central Kyiv on Monday morning. Klitschko said that the city's critical infrastructure has been hit. So that's how Russia's saying that it's striking back. And they're showing some video. And it's, again, this is for consumption of Russians so that they know that the mighty Russian army is striking back at, at the street. So, okay, Pravda. Pravda is showing some more. This is Putin warning of tough action should terrorist attacks continue. So he's going to force them to knuckle under by being even more punitive. The data from forensic and other specialists, as well as operational information, indicate that an explosion on October 8th, that's on the Kerch Bridge, was a terrorist act. So he's going to inflict more terrorist acts. And he says this: if any attempt to carry out terrorist attacks in our country continue, Russia's response will be tough. It will correspond to the level of threats to the Russian Federation. No one should have any doubts about this, said the president. Next, RT. Again, the Russian president has confirmed the launch of a major operation against Ukrainian infrastructure in response to the Crimean bridge attack. Okay, so forget about the military. Don't fight them. Let's fight the buildings and the roads. Putin confirmed the Russian troops carried out massive strikes with long-range precision weapons on Ukrainian objects of energy and military control and communications. Okay, there was no military control and communications. You saw a park, you saw a street, you saw an office building. There was a professor's office at the University of Kyiv I saw in one of the pictures. That's not what this was. The Kyiv regime has been using terrorist methods for a long time, said the Russian president. So apparently he's going to use terrorist methods. De facto, he's not going to call it that, though. He's going to say that he's, standing up for his people. The de facto Kyiv regime has put itself on par with international terrorist groups, and the most odious of them. Leaving such crimes without a response has become impossible, he says. So that's the way that the Russians are framing it. Putin is standing up for the Russians. And okay. Let's go on to Pravda again. Here is former Ukrainian MP says Zelensky flees. Now, there's no actual evidence that he has, but he said that the looting of the cities will begin at night. Ukraine is plunging into chaos, he concluded, as Volodymyr Zelensky has fled. Again, I looked it up. There's no evidence that this is the case, but they don't need evidence to put out propaganda. Here's some more massive wave of missile attacks reported across Ukraine. Multiple missile strikes targeted Ukrainian cities all across the country on Monday morning, according to local officials. Office of Valery Zaluzhny, that's the commander-in-chief of the Ukrainian Armed Force, reported that they had detected at least 75 missiles and claimed that they had intercepted 41. Those numbers rose in a different article, but here's some more of the footage of this. Again, consumption for Russians. And Boris Fletyov, 12th, the mayor of Dnipro, a major city in central Ukraine, confirmed the strikes and said that they could only feel hatred and the wish to fight while urging residents to take shelter. And I think this is one of the most appropriate things that has been said this whole time. What do you think these strikes are going to do? Again, the generational hatred across Ukraine is just it's just massive. And if they were ever, cozy with the Russians, they are as far from that as they have ever been. Here's some footage of a building that's been struck. Again, there's no military value or military purpose in this, but that's what's going on. So there's this hatred and the wish to fight that's going on. Zelensky concluded this today: "We are Ukrainians, we help each other." And he said, "This morning is tough. We're dealing with terrorists, dozens of missiles, Iranian Shaheeds. They have two targets: energy facilities throughout the country, and the second target is people." And that's right, residential buildings, residential streets, city parks, civilians are being targeted. If this isn't terrorism, state-sponsored terrorism, then nothing is. Let's take Syria and North Korea off the list, because it doesn't make any sense. Why such strikes exactly? The enemy wants us to be afraid, wants people to run, but we can only run forward. And we will demonstrate this on the battlefield. He says, finally, please stay in shelters today. Thanks to the help of our military, everything will be fine. He's a lot more placid than I would be. The fascinating thing about all this is that Russia keeps talking about how the Ukrainians just don't want to negotiate. They can't with this kind of barbarism. Now, I seek peace, and I am calling on Russia, end the war, return illegally annexed Ukrainian land. Thank you for your time. I'll be back tomorrow.